Welcome back, everybody, to the Wild Faith Podcast. My name is Evan Bungham. I have my co-host Luke Timmons with me today, and we have two very special guests with us here today. We have Matt Baier and Sam Baier with us. These are two gents that they love the hunt, they love baseball. They're local from Minnesota as well, southwestern Minnesota, represent that 507 area code. And very excited to have them on. So without further ado, let's just dive into it. Matt, Sam, Luke, how are you boys doing tonight?
Fantastic. Now that we're talking to you.
Love it.
I was just saying, Luke, before you came on, Bungham and I live in the same town, but I need more Bungham in my life. We both live such busy lives.
It's amazing. You throw a couple kids into the mix and you throw a busy summer schedule and even a busier fall schedule probably now. And it is, you feel like you live, like where do we live? We probably live 12 miles away from each other.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And it's crazy. It's just, and we're here. It's fall. It's cool weather and it's nice outside, and bow opener is literally next week.
Yep. It's open in South Dakota.
Oh,
yeah, that's true.
That's what we want to hear about. So kind of going
thanks for having us though, guys. Appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. It's fun.
Of course. And this is something we've talked about for a while now, and we wanted to just kind of give you a highlight what we're going to run through the night. Matt just got back from Montana doing a little scouting mission. Sam just got back from bow hunting out in South Dakota. We're going to kind of dive into the nitty gritty about talking about some Western trips, and you guys have a very exciting hunt coming up here in the near future, right?
Yeah. We got drew a breaks tag here for elk archery only, so we get that gives you the access to the Charles Russell, and there's three of us going, and that will be Sam's tagging along as a pack mule, and will be his first exposure to an elk hunt. So we've been doing a lot of deer hunts, and now he's transitioning and wants to tag along an elk hunt, and hopefully we can keep doing that in the years to come.
Love it. And just a little bit more background, if you guys didn't know already, that these guys are brothers. So if you guys want to go ahead and just give us a little bit of background, whoever wants to go first, just where you guys are from, other interests that you have, and just kind of how you guys got into the hunting and just that space.
Oofta. I'll go first, Sam. I'll go just because I'm older, right?
Older brother, yep. Take the honors.
So I was fortunate to be the youngest child for approximately 10 years until Sam blessed us with his presence. But, so no, we were both born and raised down in Springfield, Minnesota, like you said, southwestern Minnesota, and it's nothing but primarily cornfields, soybean fields, and tiny little creeks and rivers. So we grew up finding the enjoyment in the little things. So we didn't have sports to chase around as a small town kid. We were always hunting, fishing, and doing anything we could to be in the outdoors. So ride your bikes around town. If sunset came, you knew that mom was expecting you home for supper. So that was pretty much the only guidelines at that point.
Love it.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So as far as getting into the outdoors, grandpa and dad, it's the typical story, generational type of passed on passion. So that's kind of where it started for me and for us. Our dad is a waterfall nut. So from the youngest days, I mean, I'm sure it was the same for Sam. I was in college or out of town at that time. But for me, from starting as a young kid, you're hiding. Well, I remember tucking Sam underneath goose shells and stuff like that. The shell decoys.
I was underneath Dad in blinds a lot.
Well, true.
In the blind.
We had the coffin blinds, so we'd just put them between the legs. But back before we started using the coffin blinds, because I'm so much older, we would dig in little spots in the field and use burlap and just throw corn stalks over, or when you're small enough, you can just fit over those underneath those giant goose shell decoys. Throw one of those over your legs and away you go. But yeah, we did that every single weekend, and then depending on how your football game went that Friday night, if you weren't sore, you're back up at 5 a.m. ready to go out and see where the ducks and geese are at. So I mean, we did that every single weekend.
Yeah, it was
early goose on.
And the week that we had off, it was scouting for regular season goose.
Never ending.
Yeah, so that's kind of where it all started, was anything. I mean, and then it just kind of transitioned just from anything from going crow hunting in the off season in the summertime to pastime or shooting striped gophers around out by our farmland and stuff like that. Just anything that would get us out and out in the outdoors we were doing her.
Had a little Fred Bear bow in the backyard that didn't have any sights. You'd look down the arrow and chase rabbits in the neighbor's grove, and
perfect.
Yeah,
robins off the chokecherry tree.
Love it.
Got pretty deadly with that thing.
They're just your typical small town kids that chased it.
Yeah.
Sam, how about you?
Very similar. I mean, from very, very young age, like I said, I was laying in the blind with Dad every weekend. And if not, there's a little private lake by Springfield called Sturms Lake that we would go and sit on almost every weekend. If we didn't have something, we'd go with other buddies. It was, well, we can always go to Old Reliable and just sit and enjoy nature. And if nothing comes, nothing comes. But you get to be with Dad and hunt. There was a Grandpa Ken passed away when I was very, very, very young. So I didn't have a ton of memories of him, but heard all about him. But my grandpa on other than Grandpa Tower on the other side was basically Buzz Kelly. So Buzz was just an older guy that hunted with Dad, and he drove around every day, all day. That's what he did. He was retired. So if Dad had to go in and work, I'd jump in the truck with Buzz and do the same thing. We'd find a drainage ditch, like 2 wood ducks swimming down the drainage ditch. Buzz would be like, "All right, go out, go get them," and away I went, type of thing. So very similar, just every weekend, all weekend. And then when Monday would come around, we'd go to school, and when the weekend would come around, we'd do it again. So,
I love that. It's funny because I look at it, you look at a lot of people and how they grew up, and we think, like, when we were growing up, because we're all from a small town, and like growing up from a small town, there's nothing to do, and you kind of look back on it like now though, and you appreciate how simple it was because it got you out to go out and do those things that not a lot of kids get to do. I mean, I look at it now, like we live in Baxter. It's like, Nora's going to be, or she is 3 now. And it's just like, we can't go do the things they used to go do out on the farm, So it's like any chance we get down to grandma's house is like, that's what we're going to be doing, So like, I just think of how blessed and lucky, all of us kind of were growing up in environments like that, where you did have just endless room to go and roam and explore and just be a kid.
Yeah.
No, that's 100% spot on. It's a different world. Life's changing, and then you and I now live in a more heavily populated area. Sam as well.
Yeah, I mean,
can still shoot deer though.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
can still whack them in town.
Yeah. I get the nightly travelers in the backyard, and I think you do too in the residential area.
Is it? Do you got anything worth talking about in the backyard this year?
No, actually not. Just a lot of does, fawns, a couple of small bucks. I mean, the first year, I've never hunted in my backyard. I've never shot a deer back there or anything. It's more for viewing pleasure. And that first year, there was like 9 different bucks I threw a trail cam up. I always have one back there because bears come through and wildlife. And I got a red fox that I feed all my squirrels too. So
nice.
Yeah. So there was 9 bucks there, and probably 3 of them were like pretty good shooters. And since then, I haven't seen. Yeah, I'm not sure if the hunting pressure in the back area there has gotten heavier. I mean, I'm always vacant and I leave during hunting season, so I'm not sure what takes place around here.
Nice. So that's pretty cool that, kind of going back a little bit to how you guys kind of grew up. Pretty cool that, you guys actually are the same age group that my brother and I are. And next week will be Eric's first podcast he's ever been on. But,
Nice.
We're about a 10-year difference too. So kind of going through those stories of you guys growing up together, do you guys have like one particular hunt you could think of that you were on together that kind of just shaped the relationship that you guys have now? Because obviously you guys are out doing hunts together and it's awesome to see that. But is there like a specific hunt you could think of as a kid, or just a unique experience that you guys did together?
For me, it's a build up. It's a cumulative, because I was taking Sam back because I had a driver's license in high school, and man, took him at that time. He's 6, 7, 8 years old. So he was just riding along, and we'd go shoot things together. But or I would be shooting and he'd be carrying. But
That's kind of
No,
my.
I mean,
That's,
I was along on his first deer miss. I was
Oh boy.
along on, a lot of deer kills after that. But I don't know, Sam, what's the one that's molded us?
I don't know.
What
I'd
was
say
the
the
first
same
one?
thing. I think it was the accumulation. Like today, I was thinking back, like kind of as we were prepping for this, I was kind of thinking back of just hunts in general. But I don't know if it's necessarily hunts in general. I think it's just all of it together. Um, He'd like even sports, like living in college, like living in Bemidji or SDSU, like always came back and supported me, whether it was wrestling or baseball or football. And then he'd stay for the weekend and we'd hunt, no matter what it was. So I think it was more of just a buildup of that way. It was kind of just always there for me and supported me. That kind of built the relationship that we still go out now and try to do those things even more so. So, I don't know if it's necessarily a certain hunt that did it. Kind of like Matt said, I think it's just accumulation of all of it. So
Yeah, the one that always sticks out to my mind is the one I told at your wedding.
yeah,
He got horse collar his junior year and snapped his leg from behind when he was running down the sideline. So he was in crutches and a boot or a cast. So go figure. Second season, I already had shot a deer first weekend of gun season, southern Minnesota. So I drove back home, got him out of school a day early, and took him down to our family friends' land that we deer hunt on. Second weekend, it was snowing on the ground. We're shoving hand warmers in his toes and wrapping him up, and we went and chased, and a big buck started coming across some public land that was adjacent to it. So, being I was the mobile one, I went to go make a move and cut it off, and was able to corral it between us. So I had it like to the point where I stood up and it's directly between us, not like face to face, but equal shooting distance apart. And I stood up and I yelled at Sam, and I could see him pop up over the sorghum and then pop back down,
I'm
pop
on
back
one.
up with a gun, and then shoot it. So that was kind of funny that to
I
take him a little bit on the crippled list, the DL, and get him out there and get a buck. So
he piggybacked like I was. What was I? A junior? Junior.
mm-hmm.
Yeah, I was a junior, so I was like at the time like 160 pounds, and he piggybacked me across the plowed field out to this little public piece, and then sat me down on the edge of this food plot, and I sat there. And when he yelled, "Sam, shoot it," because I was sitting down with my leg up. Like, I could not see the deer.
Like,
I didn't even know.
shoot.
I knew the deer was there because he left, but then he, like, all of a sudden I just hear, "Sam, shoot." So I stand up on one leg, like, shoot, drilled it. And then,
Nice.
But, yeah, that's true.
Yeah, it's the little things.
Yeah. No, I was thinking about the one down where we deer hunt down on the river. I remember I was super little. It was like one of the first times I ever sat in a tree stand. We didn't see crap, but like a couple of raccoons and something like that. But I remember sitting down the first time, like really down on the river, and like hearing about the stories. It was like one of the first ones that popped in my mind. Was like the first time I ever sat in a deer stand really with somebody. So
that's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
It's cool to think too, because like I look at it, once again, how privileged we are that, I had opportunities to hunt. When you guys are that young making memories, like some people, I just think of the people that don't start hunting or fishing or whatever it is until like they're out of college or, just, getting into college or whatever that be, where it's like, they're 22, 23. And it's like, man, we've been doing this since I was like 5. You get a whole another half of a lifetime of not just experience but like memories that you build. So that's pretty sweet that you guys were able to do all that together. So it's awesome.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. It's a special sport, and that's why we try to get kids out early, right? It's just for that exact reason.
Yep. So Matt, coming from one older brother to another, and Evan, you can attest to this too. But what was your why for taking Sam out? Because I have 2 younger brothers who I've been on countless hunts on and with them for their first kills and etc. But what was your why to getting him out there, getting him involved into hunting?
Oof, I don't know. It was more like it was supposed to do as a big brother, right? But I
Right?
guess it kind of ties. I guess that kind of ties into the faith piece because it's more of your moral conscience. Like for me, I've kind of got I feel like I've got a big heart, so it weighs heavy on me when I have opportunities, and I know he's right there, and I could have shared that with him or let him have that same opportunity. So that's where that for me, as he's been growing up or hunting with me, I don't. Yeah, it's changed to the point where the competitiveness in me to go shoot the big buck is now more, let's go have a great time together and enjoy the experience.
Mm-hmm.
And I just want everyone to be happy on the trip. So yeah, that's it. I mean, to answer your question, what was it, or what's the advice? It's more of just an inner moral compass that has directed me to that, to get them out there and bring them with and all that stuff.
For sure. No, it's interesting.
Love it.
Like you kind of hit on there too, is that I think everybody goes through that shift in their life when it goes from, I mean, everyone wants to still chase big bucks, don't get me wrong, but
Right.
you know, where it shifts from only you wanting to kill the buck to, you know, going on trips with, you know, your brother, going on trips with friends, and just like, yeah, we could, you know, I always joke with my buddy Eric, because we do a goose fest every September in Wisconsin. And every year he texts us, he goes, I can guarantee food, beer, and good conversations, but I can't guarantee geese. And we're like, nobody cares, Eric. We don't care if we shoot one damn geese. It's just, you know, we just come for the, you know, the camaraderie and being around, you know, like-minded men and just hanging out and, you know, having a good time. So that's where the true, you know, the memories kind of obviously stem from, is those memories of the hunt, not necessarily obviously the kill too, you know, but you know, what were you doing with so and so at that moment in time, and you know, that's just the beauty of the hunt, I think.
Yeah, no, and don't get me wrong. There's plenty of competitive nature between
Oh
us
yeah,
and the rest of our family and cousins that we hunt with.
for sure.
It's been an open topic of conversation where you know, you're obviously going out there to succeed. It's been drilled at us from your first T-ball practice on, right? And the reps and the practice, and you continually want to do something to the point of perfection, or try to, right? And 1% better every day. So you take that same mindset of what you've been molded on in athletics and take that into the field, and it's hard to get away from that, because you're always wanting to walk over that next hill. You want to go do the next, you know, turn the next corner, or look under every rock and find that bigger buck, you know. And it's tough sometimes to walk that line, you know, of making sure that it's enjoyable and you're not sucking the life out of it, you know.
Absolutely.
Nice. So with, you know, this podcast is going to drop on Monday. So this would be, well, to me, it's like a national holiday. So this is the week of Minnesota bow opener, which is very, very exciting. But did you guys have, you know, it sounds like both you guys have been on tons of adventures together, but from a family perspective, it sounds like you guys, you know, hunt with family and friends. Do you guys have any family traditions? You know, if it's bow opener, or, you know, usually it's gun opener from Minnesota, or, you know, is it pheasant opener? Is there anything that you guys have, you know, you can count on that everyone's going to be there for whatever day it is?
Yeah, I'd say it's probably firearm opener for us. It's kind of probably the biggest one for us. Everyone kind of comes back to between, I mean, some of Dad's best friends that we've gotten to be really, really close with, just because we go down to the hunting shack every year, and it's kind of the same thing. Whether we shoot a deer or not, the food's going to be good. The conversation's going to be good. We're there every year. It's gotten a little bit tougher, just like for me in general. I work every other weekend with retail hours now, so it's like now I got to kind of pick, like, okay, West River opener, like firearm opener. So I always try to make it down there, whether it's during the week or not, to visit some of those friends. So that's always fun. So like the first year I didn't make it to hunting shack, it was like, man, I should be there. Like, it just ate me alive standing.
It's a weird feeling not being for like Minnesota gun opener, not being in a stand. It's like, what am I doing?
Well, yes, it ate me alive at the store. I was pretty worthless at the store that day, like thinking about it. But God, but no, that's probably our biggest tradition. Other than that, I would say goose opener used to be probably our biggest one prior to that, when we were
living in town. It was waterfall 100%.
100%. Yeah.
Nice. You know, if as an opener, the day of, it was like we'd be duck hunting or goose hunting, you know, and then it's like, well, okay, it's slow. I suppose we could walk through the grass a little bit, you know. It's like one of those types of deals. And then same with archery, you know, it opens, it's like, oh, if it's hot and buggy, maybe we won't go. So that wasn't like the heart and soul. It was always the duck and goose hunting, and then the other stuff was just filler.
Yeah. I remember like Friday night football, like we get done with the football game, win or lose for me. Matt's football team, undefeated senior year, but win or lose, he'd run over to Dad and be like, well, did you find a field for tomorrow? Yeah, what did Buzz see? What did we find? Like, where are we going in the morning? Like, as soon as the game's over, like, got more nervous for that than he did for the football game, dang near. Like, Yeah.
Love it.
Do you guys
Love
still
it,
do
love
much
it.
waterfowl hunting?
Not as much as we used to.
Yeah.
When I was in college, I did a lot of it. So 2-3 years
Sure.
ago, I had a couple buddies that go to Brookings. So I'd
Nice.
drive up there when I could, but no, now it's the occasional trip. Like next week, I have Tuesday, Wednesday off. I'd text Dad and was like, if you can get off, go sit with you down at the lake or something. But
Nice.
it's once or twice a year.
Yeah, what kind of broke it for me is I finished my schooling up at Bemidji and then started living up there full time after that. So back to Springfield and Dad's stomping grounds. It's a 5-hour drive. So
Mm-hmm.
I kind of stopped. Granted, I was doing it with some friends up there, but that's really where it kind of flipped the switch in me anyway to start chasing the big game, just because I was in the big woods.
Yep.
Started deer hunting around there. I had a contact from family back down south of a farm up there that I had sole rights to, so I was chasing bucks up there, and then that's kind of where I ran into our mutual friend Joe Anderson up there. That's his hometown, and then we started doing some hunts out west, and that's kind of what kicked it off.
Never look
Nice.
back.
Yeah.
The rest is history.
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh, once you go, it's addicting.
Well, it's
Yeah.
a perfect segue here, and kind of this, like I said, kind of the main thing we wanted to get into is some of your guys' Western experience. Just being that South Dakota just opened up on the 1st, and then you guys are heading out to Montana here pretty soon. What day does Montana open up officially for you guys?
Opens the 7th.
Okay.
Yep.
Nice.
For the elk hunting. I'm not sure about deer for archery, but archery elk general season opens September 7th and it goes through like October 20th, I want to say.
Okay.
It's October 20th. So it's a fairly long and late archery season, but we are thinking about going for like a short trip during opener and then kind of break it into 2 different hunts and then later towards maybe more of the peak rut, or bugle.
Okay.
But I'm glad we chose not to. We're just doing one extended week trip because right now out there, the forecast shows plus 90 degrees for the next 5 days. So it's like, whew. And it was hot when we were out there scouting. So
Yeah,
I'm glad we're going to be going. We picked the dates like the 18th through the 29th. So it's going to be a good chunk of time, and we're putting our money, putting our time in and trying to make the money worth it.
Mm-hmm.
Nice. Well, let's dive right into it. So, Sam, you are probably the first of many that got a chance to actually put a bow in your hand and get out and chase some deer. Tell us about you were out scouting and hunting out in western South Dakota. How'd it go?
Yeah, it was a good trip. It was more of a, like you said, scouting and kind of get ready for later trips in the fall, whether it's get out there in October possibly or for rifle opener in November. So I was able to get some cameras hung and kind of get the lay of the land this year, whether it was starting to get a little bit more moisture out there. So it's nice. And the deer are starting to get a little bit more cover again. For a couple of years there, it was pretty dry. So
yeah, when it's dry, it's the hunting changes that piece of property anyway, which is not a piece of property. I mean, it's between the family members, tens of thousands of acres. So it's a ranch. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So I was trying to get as much eyes on different pieces as I could. So I was kind of taken away from the bow in my hand and getting in spots is getting close to deer is more so just getting on a high point and seeing what's traveling for me. I brought one of my best friends out there, Carter. So kind of like Matt said, I've kind of gotten to the point when I get with him out there, I feel like I got to try to get him on a deer the best I can. So I got him a few opportunities where we got pretty close. First day, we spotted a bedded muley sitting in a dugout. We got within about 80 yards. He was crawling in, got downwind or got around with good wind. And as he's crawling up, like you'd never guess, but 2 wild horses started freaking out behind him. So these wild horses are making all kinds of noise and like trotting back and forth behind him. And he's crawling up on this deer and the deer like can hear the horses. It's like I was sitting up overwatch, just kind of, if he moved, we could make a different move on him. But the buck through the spotter, turned his head. You could tell he heard the horses or something. He just picked up and moseyed down, got into a spot that with the wind we had, we just weren't going to try again. Mm-hmm. So we're like, well, we got 2 more days. We'll just let him be. Let's go find something else. We ended up sitting that night. It was more of a glass sit again. Carter sat on a hay bale pile. I sat on a hill, got glass on where deer were going. And then the following day got real windy. So it was tough. They were tucked in. We didn't really find anything through the afternoon. That evening, Carter went and sat on an egg field for muleys that typically they walk up into, and got within about 100 yards, couldn't get a shot off, but was able to adjust for the following evening. Got within 50 and had a range of 54 yards on the muley, tried to stop him, didn't stop, and by the time that he shot, he probably took 2 or 3 steps. So he was ranged at like 55 yards, shot, and he was probably now at 60, depending on what angle he was, and missed low. So missed low that night, and then the following morning, I spotted a whitetail spot where we were at, where they were pretty consistently walking past an H-post and a bush down into a finger. And so I set him up on that bush next to the H-post, and been about a 50-yard shot is what I guessed. The whitetail walked by at 41 yards. As he drew back, whitetail was alert, shot, ducked his arrow. So just some tough luck. Nothing that he could really control, but got some pretty good action.
I feel like you got to cut your teeth your first trip to South Dakota a little bit.
Yeah. So no, it was a good trip. A lot of action, a lot of deer. It was good to see some moisture. Got some cameras out. So
a lot of velvet still.
Yeah, I was the first day, it was everything we saw was velvet. As we got into day 2, 3, last day, it was changing really fast. It's
amazing how fast that can happen with muleys or whitetails. It's crazy.
Yeah, the muleys were the muleys were pretty much all velvet. I think we saw one hardhorn the whole trip for muleys. The whitetails, by the 3rd night, were pretty much almost all hardhorned. I'd say probably 75%.
I would say in Minnesota, it was like the 1st and 2nd, all the bucks we had out of velvet. It was just like clockwork.
Yeah. And trail cameras for us too have been showing that too. Even out west, all the whitetails we've had now too have been hard horned. So it changed pretty quick. I was able to take a thermal out and try to get rid of some of the varmints out there too. So that was fun. We got rid of a couple. So there's so many out there. We didn't even make a dent. I almost need to make a trip out there just for
if we keep
coyotes.
saying we want to go out there and just do a dedicated coyote trip, and
it's ridiculous. The first morning, I had an 8-pack come out of the finger next to me, and I actually watched them circle a doe and a fawn, split the doe and a fawn, and I even told Carter, like, if they are on this fawn, I'm leaving my spot and like getting them out of there. Like, I'll quit the hunt to get them off. And they split the doe and the fawn, and somehow the fawn was able to get out of that 8 coyote. Like, it was textbook for the coyotes. Like, they shouldn't, like, shame on them if they couldn't finish this. Like, but he got away, thank God. And then that night I saw 4. The next morning I saw like 2 or 3. It was
jeez.
Yeah. They're everywhere.
And
the landowner actually called in a copter with the government.
And in 2 hours, they shot just under 40 coyotes.
Oh my gosh!
That was a year or 2 ago, though, when they did that. But
how does that work in a copter? Because it's not like shooting hogs.
They actually, it's an over and under shotgun, so you can grab the hulls instead of them shooting out, so they don't hit the rotor. It's actually an over under, so they can grab the hulls and throw them into the chopper. They actually let the landowner go with them because the other shooter was sick that day.
Oh wow!
So he's like, dude, it's the funnest thing.
Call me anytime you need somebody to fill in for that. That sounds like
only a couple. It was only like a couple $100 an acre or an hour like that, I think. So I'll pay that money.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, worth it to them. I mean, killing calves and whatever it is, but
that early season hunt that we've had some really good luck. We've been going out to that spot for probably going on 8 years now, and we've had different luck. Carter and Sam were with Joe and I on that very first inaugural trip out there, and Sam put the smackdown on a stud muley, and that was a fun hunt because we literally had to show him the coulee, kind of give him tips on what to glass for, what the muleys will do, because it was his first ever muley trip, and he had a horseshoe in his back pocket.
Shot a stud too.
Shot a stud. Guessed on the yardage because it jumped up in front of him and then stopped, which muleys do.
Yeah.
And he hard punched it, but yeah, that's a stud of a muley, and so we've been going to that ranch and had some good luck ever since because that was a velvet muley, and then I think Joe has gotten a couple of big whitetails out there on first opening weekend.
Well, Joe, I think it was was it last year he shot a cactus buck?
Yeah, it's actually
Yeah.
on my pool table right now. I picked it up today from the taxidermist.
Oh,
Nice.
I gotta come see that. Nice.
I can show you guys right out there, but
Yeah, you'll have to grab
Sure.
it at the
We had a
event if you
history
can
of
see
that
it.
deer. We had pictures
Yeah.
and videos of that deer. That deer like haunted me for 2 years because I was the only one that like legitly had actual eyes on it for 2 years. Otherwise, it
Really?
was just videos through my mag view, and I'm like, dude, the thing looks like I remember the first year we
like a
got it.
pronghorn.
I'm like, yeah, it looked like an antelope running around. And I'm like, what the heck's going on with this thing? Then the following year, when it snowed all that much, I got a video of it laying down, and it was like peak rut with that snow, and like deer running back and forth all over the place, and this thing's just laying there, like didn't move all morning, didn't care about a deer, just sat there, and I'm like, it looks like he's got a bush on the top of his head, like.
Yeah.
And it was so far away because at that point where they were at, we didn't have permission for that farm at the time,
Mm-hmm.
so it was a long ways away, so you couldn't tell what it was, and it was just a really cool deer. And then we finally got it on camera once, and then we're able to get permission for a farm and get closer, and we finally got Joe on it.
In a cactus buck, and if anybody doesn't know what that is, it is actually, I think it's more rare than any non-typical. I want to say it's extremely rare because technically I don't even think it can get scored into like Boone and Crockett because it's its own category.
You have to peel the velvet off anyway, and it's a velvet because our hypothesis on this is that it's something with the genitalia that it wasn't producing the right amount of testosterone to get hard horns, so its horns were staying soft the entire time. So what would happen is every time it'd break off tines, it'd grow tines, it'd break them off, and it would just keep growing new fresh bone, but they would never solidify. So it'd consistently stay velvet, and the bases would just keep literally the bases were like this thick around. So we'll close the episode and we'll show you the buck. It's a good one for the viewers to see.
Yeah,
so.
it's ridiculous.
It is. It's a once in a lifetime buck for sure.
So kind of sticking to that early season theme, just keeping it relative to South Dakota here for a bit before we move into Montana a little bit later. But Matt, you've if people haven't had a chance to watch, you've got a lot of content out there with ADO Outfitters, and like you said, you guys have been out there for 8 years. You're a wise, seasoned vet now for chasing muleys and whitetails. To give us some stories and maybe just pour some wisdom on us, for those people that are getting out there for that first couple weeks of the South Dakota Bow Opener.
Yeah, I mean, I may be 10 years older than Sam, but he's been there since day one of going out there. So he's equally as much of a veteran as I am. So, it's like I said, it's addicting once you get out there because it's a totally different ball game. We all grew up in Minnesota hunting deer out of tree, right? And trying to get in between bedding and feeding grounds or travel areas. So it's once you go out there and as a more aggressive type. I always compare it to like just you're a kid playing a video game, and when you're young, it's like it gets that Navy SEALs or the Tom Clancy's.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, you got to strategize, you got to play the winds, you got to look at the topography, you got to see how many eyes are out there, and it just brings a totally different element to the spot and stock game, which I just love. So I'm addicted to it, and they're tough creatures. The mature bucks, I was telling Sam, it's crazy how every time we'd get into a scenario where we're the stick and string and we're trying to chase one of those early season bucks, the mule deer bucks will always have does above and below, right? So they do the typical, they've got their back to the wind, so they'll find a coulee that's in the, if it's early like that, they're on the shady side of the coulee or a hill, trying to stay cool, or if it's a shade tree, whatever. But they've always got the wind to their back, so they're looking down below on the downwind side to protect themselves, and they've got deer above and they got deer below. So it seems like all the mature bucks, it's always gives that extra element of how do you get close to that. So that's the toughest thing, is finding the opportunities when they slip up on a couple of those things. Maybe it's just a couple of bachelor group bucks that are sitting together, and it's a little easier to get in close to the bucks. But for most of the part, from what we've seen and experienced out there, that's usually how they sit and lie. And even that transitions out into rifle season where
Yeah.
we've done rifle stocks on them, and how they position themselves are smart, man. That's why they get big. So
It's definitely to that point. And I know Luke, you got a really exciting hunt. You drew your first rifle tag this year for South Dakota, so you got a fun hunt coming up. But I think this will be our 10th year going out to South Dakota, and we're going to public land again, so we won't be back out there, I think, until middle of November. But it is wild how smart they are. Even the whitetails out there. I mean, it's crazy how they just position themselves in. I think the hardest point or the hardest part is seeing a buck and then knowing that you can't kill that buck that day because there's just no feasible way possible you're going to make a stock on them just based off. And the hardest part is when you do make the stock and then you got 4 different does that you didn't know were there. And then you bump one of them and it's the gig's up. You hope that they stop 10 yards after they start bounding, but it's hard.
yeah. No, it's totally that way. They blend in so well, and my biggest muley to date was out there and doing the same thing, flipping a coin. The other guy goes, and all of a sudden, one doe spots him, and the whole hillside blew up, and we're like, "Oh, there's twice as many deer as we thought." You're either way. It's they're smart, but they're a tough creature to sneak up on. They got ears that are the size of satellites, and they use their nose, so they're tough. For the little bit that I've done some spot and stalk in the timber of elk, I would say that a mule deer in crunchy grass like that is, if you have a windy day, that really helps you. But they're a tough creature when they've got the conditions in their favor. It's a tough, very slim odds of sneaking up on them.
So what would you say for both of you guys? What would you say the number one, for someone going out making their first trip, or maybe they've done a couple trips, what's the number one thing of advice you would give for somebody? I mean, I guess it doesn't matter if it's bow or rifle, but just in general, like if you had to think of one tip.
Put the miles on.
Miles on to find them. Once you find them, then I'd say it's patience. Don't overthink it. Don't overrush it. Like you said, you feel like sometimes it's just, okay, I can't hunt this deer. Well, yes and no. You can either go put miles on and try to find another one of the equal caliber that you want to kill, or you can sit on it, because at some point either the sun's going to move and he's not going to be in that shady spot anymore, and he's going to have to get up and move. So you can either position yourself to be closer to that, or you sit from afar and wait for that to happen and see where he moves to. But it's tough to, we're fortunate enough where we're at. It's kind of in a mix of coulee land with ag land, where sometimes you can pattern them where they go to an ag field when they get up, but most times they're going to go, and whether they want to go find water first or go munch on some sage, they'll meander wanderously through that hillside. So it's tough to say they're going to get up and they're going to take this trail up to that alfalfa field and go eat,
Sure.
Because the mule deer just act a little different, but they will get up and move. So if you sit on them long enough, they will, but it's just how long do you want to put in on it.
And I know, Sam, you are the local shields expert in Sioux Falls. So if you had to tell a guy what if you had to pick one piece of gear that you could not live without doing that hunt, what would it be?
Your glass. 100% glass. If you're gonna go cheap, I mean, like, honestly, you can get a cheap rifle like a Savage Axis with, I mean, it's gonna shoot. Like, they're made to shoot. But if you're going out there with a cheap glass and your eyes are getting tired, and because of it, you're not gonna have edge clarity, that kind of thing. Like, if you're out looking thousands of yards away and you need to see an ear flick in a bush, just to find a deer, a glass, I think, in my opinion, is going to be the most important. So whether that's a spotting scope, your binos, your scope on top of your rifle, whatever it may be, that's the part that I think is most important. For me, it's my spotting scope. I mean, you're using that constantly. You're sitting on top of a hill, you're glassing these coulees from a long ways away, being able to magnify and still stay clear. You got heat waves going on, especially early season, being able to cut through some of that stuff.
Now, would you rather have, if you could only have one, would you rather have like a set of like a 12 by 50 binos, or would you rather have obviously you can't just roll out there with the spotting scope, or would you rather have like if you can only have one good piece of glass from between a spotter and binoculars, what would you go with?
I would go with binos if that's the case. If I can only have one, I'm gonna have binos on my chest,
Okay.
just for the mobility of it and moving and that kind of stuff. Yeah, a good 12 by 50. I'm running a 12 by 50 currently. If you're in the woods and that kind of stuff, a 10 by 50 or 42 or an 8 by 42 is awesome.
What kind of optics are you running this year?
I've got a set of razors, 12 by 50 or 12 by 50s from Vortex. Currently is what I'm running. Yeah.
And they're a good bang for your buck binocular or brand of optics.
Vortex versus Loophole versus Swarovski. I mean, you get Swarovski being the top glass in the world. I mean, if you can pay
it
for
is
it,
pretty
really,
wild
really
looking
nice.
through those when you've never looked through them before. And then like for me, I've rocked my 12 by 50 Diamondbacks. They've been in, I think it's been 3 years now, and they've done great. But I'll never forget the first time that I ever looked through a Swirl spotter in a Swirl. I think they're 12 by 50s, and it was just like, I wish I could spend $7,000 and buy these.
Yeah, and it's a privilege working with what I do to be able to kind of see and get my hands on some of that product to learn about it, and tell people why that I think they need it, whether they can pay for it or not, kind of thing. But it is truly ridiculous what goes into some of those products. So,
would you say a pack is pretty important too? I mean, it's
for sure.
It's hard to say from, a perspective of like, it's such a, we'll talk more about this too when we get into the elk hunting piece, but that's more of a day-to-day, maybe you're camping out there for multiple days, but like, I would think, especially pack out perspective, like sometimes you get stuck in there, you're 5-6 miles in. That's not a fun pack out.
Oh, no, for sure. Yeah. Matt has more experience with the elk kind of pack. I mean, I've gone to him with advice of what he's used in the past and that kind of stuff too. And but like for me, going out west of South Dakota, just a smaller sawtooth 45 from Mystery Ranch that I can get just just some extra clothes, a jacket, but still have that shelf on there to be able to pack out is huge. If you don't have a pack shelf and you just got to throw it in your bag with all kinds of gear, I mean, it's gonna be tough. Like you got to have a shelf. So I'll
still never forget my first mule deer I ever killed out there. I feel bad for Jordan if he's listening, but I think we were about 7.5 miles in on this piece of public, and got just pulled a rabbit shoe out of my ass and shot this muley at like 55 yards. Got lucky. He would have heart punched him, did a 180, ended up hitting him right in the hind quarter, hit the femoral, ran like 60 yards, but he died on the farthest point possible on the piece of public down in the river. And we got down there, and this is our first year ever out there. Excuse me, no, it's our second year ever out there. And I've got a camera bag from Badlands, and that's all I had. And it was this little, maybe like, it would have been like a, what's a good comparable pack? Would have been like the pop-up 28 from, Mystery Ranch, just a tiny little bag. And then he's got this frame pack, and if nobody knows, Jordan's he's a pack mule. He's a giant human being. And he just looked up and he's like, well, I guess I'm taking this deer out. And he hauled that whole thing all 7 miles up and down those hills. And that the funny thing at that time, we never learned that, you're supposed to sidestep hills or try to get up on the ridges you can. Man, we went down and up and down and up, and every, I think it was like 8 fingers we did that. And it took us like 6.5 hours. It was just brutal.
Well, you find out who your friends are there.
Yeah, that's right. Quick. So thank you. Shout out, Jordan. Thank you very much for doing that. I'll never forget that. So that was a fun hunt. But more exciting stuff. We talked a little bit about South Dakota. Matt, first, before we kick into what you guys got cooking from Montana, tell us a little bit about your experience down in New Mexico, because you killed an absolute giant.
Yeah, it was a good bull. It was a lot of learning and a lot of trial and errors that go into a bull like that. I'd shot in only one elk before that, and a spike on last day, just because it was search and destroy for bringing home meat. So, and we've had every single year I've gone elk hunting, we've seen bulls, we've had encounters with bulls, and it's just learning. As a flatlander going out west, those first couple of years, and you go and you pick some of these spots that you go into, and you get to the foothills or you're driving in, and you're like, whoa, what am I getting into? It's like, yeah, it hits you hard. You're like, I'm not ready for this, and then you get in it, and you hit the mental toughness part of it on the trail, and you get through the burn, and you get in shape on day 2, and then it's game on. But yeah, no, the New Mexico, I've hunted Idaho, Montana, now New Mexico on top of that, and it's they got a different system down there, so they don't have preference points. It's the same luck of the draw every year. Um, you can get a slightly better odds if you enter through the outfitter pool. So I did that through ABO. It was a contact that we had, and um, trying to give them a little bit more exposure and sell hunts for them in the future through our website. But nonetheless, I entered through the outfitter pool, so that gave me a little bit better odds. But still, I believe there was only like some teen non-residents that get that unit, so fairly limited entry. Um, and yeah, going down there, it was I did knew that it was a very low odds that I got that, so I was putting in all the effort. I was shooting twice a day there for the weeks leading up, and I was shooting for months straight, and going through every single piece of equipment I had. I was mentally ready, physically ready, was in shape. Went there and gave it the all, and it's amazing because going from the general units that I've been into or over the counter and going into a unit like that was just night and day difference. The amount of elk, the amount of bulls, the activity. Literally, I rolled up to camp and there's bugles right below the tent going on, and the first few days it was 3 encounters that first morning, and then you go and okay, we bump a couple, or you have a couple more encounters in the afternoon, or that night we're on a bull herd and his cows, and it's just like, yeah, it was.
Were you sifting through bulls too?
Not really. I kind of had a threshold, like, it's kind of known to be like, you can shoot you can shoot over 350s in there.
Yeah.
But anything at that 300 mark or 315, but is kind of the average, I would say, for that unit. But it's archery hunting, and from the past 7 years before that, it was you only get so many opportunities, let alone can you pass up on any. But a couple of raghorns early, yeah, we did, but there was just decent elk around. We saw 5x5s, we saw 6x6s left and right. So yeah, I didn't really pass anything up. We just had a lot of fouled encounters, where the one came sniffed up my collar's backside at like 10 feet, and instead of coming from because we were actually calling a different bull, it looked like a decent 6x6. So we got on a logging trail out in front of him from the direction he was headed to try to call him into us. And from the bottom side below us, we had one charge up the hill to our caller, and it's like, geez, like too many elk. Like it screwed up that encounter. But
jeez.
So yeah, I think it killed on day 4, and the coolest part of it was, it was a combination of all the things that we've learned, because you beat yourself up so many times out there with those errors or those failed encounters, like, oh my gosh, did I say the wrong things, or were we too patient, were we too aggressive, like that valley, all of a sudden we're not finding elk, did we blow them out of here? Like, when you're walking all day and putting the miles on and you're sore, those thoughts are just in your brain constantly, so taking all those learning experiences and putting it into that one, I actually was very aggressive on that elk, just the way he was acting. He was communicating with us, but he was communicating because he just wanted to keep his cows. And when I recognized that, like, I told the caller, like, buckle up, we're going after him. And he even said at the end of it, he's like, I've never seen anyone go after an elk like that. Not saying that I'm great or no, it's just an experience that I've seen from failed encounters, that was our only option, or otherwise he's just going to run off and keep letting us know he's walking away from us. So we got in tight on him, and actually got down on a bench. I tracked, it was like probably about 2 miles. We pushed him, calling, raking, making him mad. He'd turn around, scream at us, and then turn around, chase his cows, and we kept just staying on his heels. to the point where we got down on the saddle and he started bugling with another bull. We never saw that one, and we lost sight of this one, but his cows stayed right below us, and I got to a spot where I couldn't get any further. It was as close as I could get, and the cows just stayed down there, and they just circled, and they were so confused on what to do. So I sat on the cows for 30 minutes, and they were literally barking. They were looking around. You could just see they were alert. Bulls are bugling on both sides of them, and every time that they would walk below me, I would be ranging, different trees and where they were at. And sure enough, after a little bit, here came that bull back to herd him back up, and he walked right by a tree that I had ranged and put a shot on it, and was able to get the bull down. So,
Nice.
yeah, no. If you watch the video, there's a lot of excitement. I Ric Flaired after that one because it was like
Yep.
7 years of emotion that came out in that moment, and yeah, is what it is. Yeah, I know it's not what you're supposed to do, but in that moment, it was happening. So
It's a
I was
pretty awesome video. So if you guys haven't seen it, you can check it out on YouTube at ABO Outfitters, and definitely a must watch. It's a cool one. The Ric Flair moment's pretty sweet.
yeah. But no, it was a very special hunt, and what was even more special was like you get that feeling of rejoice, after you kill that animal and you go up and you walk up to it, and all those emotions from the past few years, and those trial and errors and those failed encounters and those miles you've put on throughout those past hunts, just kind of go into that moment. And it was like a misting rain. There was elk on the other hillsides, and they're bugling, and just you couldn't have asked for a more of a surreal moment just standing there. It was great. And during the pack out, it was my most incredible elk moment because we couldn't walk 200 yards without another bull bugling somewhere. There was so
That's
many.
wild.
And it was like a full moon type of scenario too. So the moon phase, they're ripping, and it was early season. I think it was like the 11th or 12th of September, maybe even earlier. I can't remember, but yeah, we were literally having taken breaks, and it was pitch black with bright moon, and we'd just, you'd walk, and they're bugling all around us. We'd sit, let's take a break, grab some water, carrying some meat out, and we just for fun, like throw some cow calls, and here comes a bull just bugling. It's like, my gosh, they're everywhere. So it was a sweet hunt, and I'm gonna apply for that every year, just because the odds in the preference point situation, it's luck of the draw. You don't know it. It's lower odds to get into that state, so you're never gonna get it unless you try. You can't plan for that one and say, "Oh, I'm gonna put in for 5 years, and in 2031, I'm gonna hunt that unit." That's my plan, and you just can't do that unless you want to spend big money and buy a voucher.
Oh, this is the interesting year now too. That Colorado is the last year for over the counter.
Over the counter, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, a lot of changes going on, and from all the research I do and everything, it's preference point systems are not the answer. It's just like our economy's inflation; it just keeps getting harder.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that's a good thing though, from a points perspective for a lot of states? Because I mean, it's not only just Colorado that did that this year. I know Nebraska changed their schemes for whitetail and their mule deer hunts, along with. I'm trying to think, is there another big Western? I can't remember if there's another Western state that had another big significant change. Maybe it was just Colorado and Nebraska, to my knowledge. But
there's been a lot of, like, Wyoming just changed their. Idaho did it a few years ago, where the over-the-counter, they're upping their tag fees, and the allocations to non-residents, and it's all a money game, right? So, and that's where people can buy preference points and bonus points, and depending on which state has what rules, and that's how Game and Fish makes income to pay for all those things that they're doing for conservation. But from the hunter's standpoint, when you look at how many people have been buying and hoarding preference points in some of these states and for some of these hunts and species, and right now, me personally at 30 some years old, I can't go or even start applying for some of those in the current system because I would never be able to ascertain it, because you need 30 some points. and it just keeps growing every single year. So by the time I would get to be 60 some years old, who knows where that point creep's
Yeah.
going to be. So
Mm-hmm.
I
So
think that other
start
state,
buying your preference points for your kids when they're
yeah,
12.
that's a great tip,
Yeah.
honestly.
It is.
And you look at some of the big names that are out there on socials and podcasts, like in the elk hunting world, because that's where the popular has really gotten
Mm-hmm.
big the last decade.
Mm-hmm.
Those guys a lot of times aren't looking to hoard points. Those guys are just taking whatever general tag they can get, because
Yeah.
they're well seasoned, they know to hunt, and it's not always shooting the biggest and finding the 400-inch bull somewhere. Granted, they obviously will take that opportunity if they can, but
Yeah.
they want to hunt more than they want to wait.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, for sure.
I think that other state you were thinking is Idaho. Idaho is doing a change,
Yeah.
aren't they? They're changing from that
yeah,
that system.
they've had a system that's first come first serve on December 1st where you call in, and it's been crashing like for the last 3 years straight, and it's kind of been a mess from the people. My first years going to Idaho, we bought at the gas station going out there. So
Oh, wow.
yeah, so it's changed so much, and
The South Dakota world there's a lot of talk of it changing too, because like the Black Hills units out there's some big elk that get shot out of the Black Hills units, and I like it. My coworker, he's got 23 preference points this year, didn't get drawn again. And then there's kids that'll get it on like their second year just out of straight luck, and it's
Mhm.
like, how is this system fair? You look at it and it's just tough because, man, I feel like now, like, look at me not knowing, like, growing up, we weren't really big game hunters, and like our dad never really looked into that. Being me only being 26, well, even if I do 23 points, like I'm 50 years old, like,
Right.
Yeah.
so it's just tough to go in there and think like, okay, should I start buying preference points now? So I know they're talking about South Dakota possibly changing, and I know not just in the elk world, but in the deer world as well too.
Yeah.
So there's a lot
Well,
of,
they went to a lottery last year for archery,
yep, and they switched
or
that.
an
And,
official lottery now, I guess.
for public land,
yeah,
private is still over the counter.
when they're talking resident wise, limiting the tags. So like for me right now, like I can get a whole bunch of tags, which, right or wrong, like archery, I can get West River, I can get East River. If I want to apply multiple East River rifle, West River rifle, I can. So they're like, their alone's 4. Now if I want to do special
Mhm.
units, I can possibly get that. Now if I want to buy leftover tags, I can possibly get that. So they're going to limit it the way it sounds. I don't know if it's for sure or not. The rumors that are flying, what's true or what's not. It sounds like they're going to limit it to either 2 or 3 tags total. So if you want to do a rifle tag, now you're limited. If it's 2, you're limited to, all right, are you doing West River or East River archery, or an all-state tag type of thing? So it could change a lot for residents as well, the way it sounds.
So tell us a little bit more about, because I know the breaks is a really unique elk hunt, because you guys, that's a hard tag to draw, right? Or it's a harder tag, I guess.
Yeah, it requires bonus points. So Montana has a preference and a bonus point pool, and the preference points you have to at least physically apply every other year, or you lose those preference points.
Mm-hmm.
So you can't just hoard preference points and buy them at the end of the year each year. So you have to, one, get the general tag through the preference points, and then depending on how many bonus points you have, once you draw your general tag, then they put you in a pool for the bonus tags for your special units. So it's kind of a 2-system draw. So they draw all the general tags first. Okay, out of everyone that was on the general, which of those then also applied for a special unit? Okay, let's draw those. Because then you have the option when you apply, if you don't get your special, you want to forfeit your general, you can. So either way, we were able to get it with I don't know. I think it was like 33% odds. So we had a few bonus points for that area. Yeah, it takes bonus points. It's a tougher to draw as a non-resident, but it's definitely they give out a lot of tags for that area. It's not like a scenario where you can go in there, and that's something we talked about scouting this last weekend. It's not an area where you can go in there and be like, oh, there's a giant 6x7 here, and this coolie, let's drop a pin, and he's going to be there in 2 weeks, because there's only a handful of people hunting this. There's a ton of people. It's a very populated, pressured hunt. So
Okay.
all the feedback we're getting from people that have hunted out there, we ran into the game and fish out there when we were scouting. That was the number one tip. Go where the hunters aren't, or you got to put the miles on and get deep because you're hunting pressured elk. So that's kind of why our scouting mission was more of a let's look at access points to get into different deep areas and try to get away from other hunters. Perhaps we're going to start and probably hunt areas that other hunters could be in at the same time just to see where the elk are at and if they're in there, and if they're not, we're gonna push deep. So
Nice.
that's kind of the plan. But yeah, it is a special hunt. I mean, if anyone Googles the Charles Russell, the refuge of the Fort Peck Reservoir, it is gnarly country. I mean, it's from rolling timber fingers and cedar fingers to just straight sand dune type of cliffs and coulees. So there's bighorn sheep in there. There's the roaming buffalo from various ranchers, or whether they're wild or not, I'm not sure. But the sheep are definitely. I had one within bow range when I was out scouting.
Nice.
So,
Wow.
yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. So it's a very cool scenery, and what I think is it's kind of bittersweet for me because after doing so many years of timber hunting up in the mountains, and and then this year Sam stated, hey, whichever, because I was either I applied for New Mexico. I have a bunch of points where I should have been able to draw Wyoming, and then I put in for this Montana tag. So when I drew the Montana tag, I was unsuccessful in New Mexico, but you're able to withdraw in Wyoming. So I was able to withdraw so that I didn't get in a situation where I got two tags and not enough time to hunt them both. So, Sam said he wanted to come on this elk hunt and cut his teeth, and this one will be a little different because it actually is a positive, I think, for us as a group because of our time hunting all the South Dakota spot and stock mule deer hunting, which we've got a ton under our belt, and we've gotten fairly successful at that. Where this is the type of hunting it'll be. They're not. Yes, you can get them to respond to calling, but primarily, the locals that are successful in this area say shut up. Like, don't even at night, don't road bugle. Like the wily bulls will just push. They know that you're not real, and so it's going to be more of a spot and stock. Get up there early, first light, last light, find elk on their feet, a ton of glass and a ton of miles, and if we find them, then we're going to go make moves.
Nice. So what logistically goes into you guys planning a trip like that? Like, when does that start for you?
Poof, right away in the spring, because some of these states are application seasons are March, April, depending on when the application season's open. We're kind of making a game plan, between me and the guys I've been elk hunting with. Okay, what are some options? Where are we sitting on points? What are we gonna do? You kind of got to look at the different states and which ones you want to go for. But then once you get a tag and you find out where you're going, then it's okay. You're hitting the e-scouting. Is it a place you've been to or not? What are you going to change from your last time you were there? If it's a brand new area, you're starting from scratch. You're looking for intel. You can call Game and Fish. You can use all your e-scouting. And from past trips, you can learn so much about topography and distances and trails and so on and so forth. So it's definitely a learning curve as a flatlander. It's a steep learning curve, but once you get there, it gets easier and easier every year. Like for somebody to say they want to go elk hunting and you're from the Midwest, one, you got quite the expense in gear to build up and get your inventory up, but then also the learning curve when you're out there. So you're going to buy all this gear, go out there, and without having someone with you that's got the knowledge of what you're doing out there, it's tough to be successful bow hunting. I mean, everyone says it's like a 10 to 15% odds of shooting an elk with a bow every year, right?
Jeez.
So that's across everybody's success rate.
Yeah.
So it's tough. So after a few years of learning what we did right and what we did wrong, we're definitely feeling more dangerous and confident that we can get it done. So.
And you guys applied as a group, correct, for your tags?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
Nice.
So it'll be three of us going. Sam doesn't have a tag. He's coming as a pack mule, like I said. But moving forward, we'll align our preference points so that he's part of the gang.
Nice. And I mean, I know obviously the end goal is to shoot an elk or two elk, but what are some of the goals you guys, or for yourself personally, like you've kind of set for this trip, being that's a first of a first kind of?
Yeah, it's kind of the same. Like if you tag out, like that's that's a home run, right? We're never, that's always the goal is everyone be successful and bring home an elk for the freezer. But it's kind of always if let's just get one on the ground and assess from there. That's the goal, right? Get one on the ground, and from there, next guy's up. Let's get another one on the ground. Because if you come out of there with 2 out of 3, or even 1 out of 3, we've always had the same thing. We split the meat equally, and it's a win. So if you ask my wife, she's got it on our calendar on the fridge for our monthly calendar. It says goals, and it just says elk meat. So I can't be too picky on this.
There you
I've
go.
got to come home with something.
And you could shoot a cow too, right?
Yeah, this area is anything. So you can shoot.
Okay.
You can shoot a spike. You can shoot a cow. You can shoot a mature bull. So anything's on the table. But
for you now, how many days of the trip are you guys going on?
about 10 days.
So
travel on the front
what
end.
day for you? And obviously you killed a stud like we talked about down in New Mexico. But like, what day is that for you? Where it's like, all right, it's day 6 now. Like, I'm hunting for meat. Like, what day is that for you usually on a trip of, it doesn't matter if it's South Dakota too, where it's just your mode switches.
Usually the back half of the
Okay.
hunt. It depends on what you're seeing, like last year in Montana, we got in about the halfway part of the hunt. We moved 3 different spots and we ended up getting into a whole bunch of bulls. And so at that point, it's like, well, we're not going to settle now because there's some big nasties running around. So, and we had the last day was incredible. We had so many encounters. So I hit one, didn't recover it, unfortunately. But Joe, he had the big one that we were chasing too, and less than 100 yards screaming, across the fence, private, and just couldn't get him to come over. But it's tough. It's situational. You can't just say, okay, day 5 of 10, I'll shoot a cow. I'm definitely going to be less picky, but I want the other guys, because I think some of the other guys are a little bit more just want to get an elk on the ground. So if those guys want to go in and make a stock on a little raghorn or a cow, by all means have at her. Let's get her down, get those guys to punch their tag, and then we'll see where the rest of the action's at later in the week.
Nice. Yeah, it's the one hunt that's on my bucket list. I just know the moment that I go elk hunting that I'm not going to want to go to South Dakota or do any other Western hunt besides that. So it's kind of a hard one for me to like want to. I will do it at some point in time, but like you were talking about earlier too, I mean, it's a completely logistically different game to go chase elk than it is to run out to Nebraska or South Dakota or like those smaller Western hunts. I mean, You're talking big terrain, big country, bigger animals. Like everything's just amplified times 10.
Yeah. Sam, what's your goals? I haven't asked you. What's your goals of coming with on this hunt?
Yeah, as an outsider, I think my goal is just to hopefully get into the action and the legs feed the wolves. So hopefully I get to be a part of carrying out some meat. But no, as an outsider, I just really truly like never been on an elk trip before. So just learn from it. And I know it's going to be different, more of a prairie style, possibly hunt. So, but either way, it's what can I take away to better myself if I get into a situation of a tag to up my odds and put some more tools in the toolbox going forward. So no, I'm just going to be kind of open-eyed and learn and hopefully follow along and be some help somehow. So
yeah, keep the skin on the back of your heels and get some meat out of it.
That's the tough part.
Hopefully got some good boots.
I'll challenge it. I'll see if I can't rip them up.
That might be a piece of gear that might be the most important. Boots, going back to that question. Yeah.
Yes, your feet.
So,
and an elk hunt, yes. So a mule deer hunt, obviously, they're a little less taxing in the areas that we've been mule deer hunting. We're not high country mule deer hunters, but elk, your feet. But Sam and I, our saying is monkeys breed monkeys. Well, we both have extremely sweaty feet, and it kills us. Like in the wintertime, they're ice cold, and you freeze your feet off because your socks get wet from hiking. And in the fall, like I have non-insulated boots, and granted they're leather, because I like the stiff sole, stiff ankle for side hilling and all that. So I'm wearing Kennetreks. Crispies are the same way. I'm wearing a leather boot, but it's not insulated, and I'll literally have sweat rings soaking through my boot.
Jeez.
So, mine too.
It's nuts.
Have you guys found? I mean, I coming from a person that's got sweaty feet, but not that sweaty feet. Like, have you had any better luck, like just rocking different pairs of like merino socks? Like, has that been able to help at all, or no?
For me, one of the docs that watched my video last year, he's from up here. We've been, Evan and I have been helping on a little archery shoot here and there. Um, he prescribed me some prescription Trisol, so I used that last year, and it worked only for about 3-4 days, and then the sweat came back. But that definitely helped, and by that time, your feet kind of, get a callus going.
Mm-hmm.
But definitely wear sock liners. So you're wearing like a merino underneath, a lightweight one that's breathable but cushioned, and then you wear the
I'll be right back.
sock liners is almost like um, like a women's pantyhose the old timers used to do.
Yeah.
You put that underneath that merino wool. But then I also carry like a Luco tape or a rock tape. And if I do start to feel a hot spot coming on, stop what you're doing, get off, take the boots off, throw some Luco tape on the heel, lace them back up, away you go.
So it's a real thing for people that have not experienced hiking to that level, and I haven't yet. I have yet to in South Dakota to have, thank God, no issues with my feet yet. But that's a good point you kind of brought up, and obviously this is a little bit of a different hunt. Break down some of the gear, Matt, that you would deem essential. That if it's just tweaks that you've done to your bow, if it's something you've done with your pack, or like you were just highlighting on your boots, like what are some of those key pieces that are going to help you become successful?
The boots are big. That's number one in my book. If you can take care of your feet, and granted, maybe there's a better boot out there that would help my feet, but I just love them for the performance of them. But
yeah,
good boots is number one if you're a mountain hunter. Glass, like Sam said, is still huge, depending on the type of hunt. If it's heavily wooded, you use it a lot less, but nonetheless, you're using it to look through the trees, trying to see them coming first, or if you smell them. You saw like just little things like you picked up on my bow when we were shooting the other that archery class. I put that little stand on the bottom of my bow. It's a cam saver. It's for a split bow. I don't know if they make them for a split limb, but just because I'm constantly, putting the bow down on the ground, you're resting it down versus, wherever, and it keeps that cam track off the rocks and the dirt. So I don't know. I wouldn't say that's essential, but that's just me for.
It's a cool piece of gear. I've never seen that before. That was awesome.
Yeah. So, gosh, what else?
Rangefinder.
That's a big one.
Yeah, that is a big one, especially for elk, because people miss. It's one of the for a flatlander, it's the most underutilized or underappreciated probably item, because you get an elk that steps out in the woods at 40 yards or 60 yards. That 60 yards is going to look like 40 yards to us because they're like such a big animal. We're used to seeing deer. So having a rangefinder is huge, and the uses that you can use a rangefinder, when you're spotting and stalking, just little things that you can use them for on grabbing other terrain, or flip it upside down, get the laser above the focal piece, and try to get over that grass and grab that antler tip, or as you're stalking in, you're 80 yards from it at that point, like grabbing different, you grab a range, it's 80, okay, then every step you take, you count, so that way if that, you get into 60, okay, I took 5 more steps, 1, 2, 3, all of a sudden that mule deer pops up or that elk pops up because it heard you step on a stick. In your head, because you last glassed at 60, I'm at 56, you draw back and shoot. So having that in as you're stalking in is huge. Otherwise you're just guessing, and then you're just setting yourself up for failure.
Nice. Sure. Love it.
So kind of just, I want to be obviously super cognizant of your guys' time here, but, so it's kind of changing gears just a little bit. You guys both alluded to it earlier when we were kind of talking about how you guys got into hunting and just having that strong moral compass, being, brothers, but also very competitive. With hunting specifically, because that's, what we've been talking about. What's the reset you guys get from that, just as, as men, and, from that kind of both sides of the coin where it's, just your own mental clarity, but also that faith piece kind of intertwined within.
Go ahead,
I think,
Skip.
yeah, I think for me, it just kind of brings you back to your roots. Like, you get so lost in everyday life of just going to work, coming home, kind of routine, and you get away, and it just kind of brings you back to how you grew up and how you were brought up. And both of us, Matt, growing up elementary, little private school, Catholic school, going. Um, it just, yeah, I mean, it just brings it back to who you are to a core. So it just feels good.
Love that.
Yeah, I agree. It's I get a sense of fulfillment. It, I was just thinking about it on the scouting trip. Me and my buddy that were out there scouting. He went one direction, I went the other, and it was just a picturesque. Like Bob Ross couldn't have painted a better picture. It's like, the sun's setting. It's a pink sky, and it's dead calm. You can hear, the wildlife around you. It's just I get a sense of fulfillment. I feel full at that time because you can feel the presence, right? The goodness, the God's creation, and I get that. Even like it kind of ties back to what Sam said. You're fulfilled because you feel like you're back to what you grew up learning and being with Dad and being with Sam and family. So it brings you back to your roots and you get that fulfillment. But obviously, it's from the big man upstairs, and even whether it's I'm on top of a coulee in Fort Peck versus setting a trail camera here in Baxter. It's like you get out in the woods and you're out in the nature, and that's God's creation. That's what does it for me.
Absolutely, that's so beautiful. And like Matt, I know you got one boy now, right? Two. And Sam, you don't have kids yet, do you? But no, I mean
married
it's
a year. So
what's that?
Just got married last year in July.
Well, congrats. But, kind of going down that little bit of a rabbit hole, the cool thing with me is I got two boys too, Matt, and 4 and 2. And now with the oldest kind of getting more into hunting and wanting to come along with Dad, like it brings such a, like you alluded to with your dad and your guys' grandpa and stuff, like it's generational, right? You get to experience all this for the first time again through your kid's eyes, and it's like that's the beauty. And like Sam, like you said, like you're not dealing with the day-to-day BS of work and life and all the other stuff that's just throwing noise in your ears, and it's like you get out there and it's just quiet, it's silent. You can just sit there and take it in and have that kind of inner reflection of just that peace that comes from it.
Yeah, no, I agree with you.
Yeah.
It's the little kids thing that's starting to pull heavy on the heartstrings. That's for sure.
Oh yeah.
It's fun. It's great. They both love it. Whenever I came home with these deer heads, me, Sam, and Joe's deer heads from last year, and we had a hell of a rifle hunt. And they just go ecstatic, Like,
oh yeah.
The little one, the 1.5-year-old, doesn't matter if it's an elk or deer, he bugles. So he just like points and bugles. He can't say anything yet.
But he can bugle. That's a good start.
Yeah, and then the older one, it's just that was his first word was buck, and a dangerous one, but it was a good one.
Yeah.
And he
yeah, he must be really good at enunciating those bees.
Yeah, so they just absolutely love it. So then, like, leaving for that scouting trip, it's like, okay, Dad's gonna be gone for a few days. I'll see you. Have fun with Auntie and Mama, and it's all good. Hugs, okay, see you, bye. And then you start rolling down the driveway, and he just bursts out in tears, crying. It's like, gosh, man, it's like I wish you could come with, but you physically can't.
Right, right.
Like you just couldn't come on this, Maybe I could entertain something back home, just for fun to get them out in the woods on a deer hunt, But,
yeah, exactly.
Or around here in Brainerd Baxter area, but I couldn't take them out west. There's no way. You'd just get bored, like a little kid's attention span. But and where does that? Because we've taken friends that have taken kids that are 8, 9, and it's still kind of that.
It's
tough. So
it's like taking kids to Barney Waters. That's a hard one, But like going off of that, and Sam, I know you just got married, but you're in the same boat though too. But Matt, you got 2 kids, and we ask a lot of our guests this question. But how does that work for you? Because everyone's kind of got their ways to go about it. But how do you kind of navigate that time with family, that time with your faith, your responsibilities, hunting? Like it's always this fine dance, I always call it, of just how you kind of navigate. So like, how do you go through and kind of navigate it, make sure that you can kind of check off all those boxes?
I think it's communication
Hmm.
for us between Mariah and I, just getting our schedules aligned for work. I work every other weekend. She works every other weekend. So we were able to get our weekends to align. So that was a big one for us. So we're working the same weekend. So when we're both gone, we're both gone. That was the biggest thing for us and kind of the turning point, to be on the same page. Whether it was being able to go to Sunday masses, and Mariah and I, me being Catholic and her being Lutheran, if we go to mass, it's we try to get to something that's non-denominational, so we can both be a part of it. There's a little place called Embrace, a couple blocks from our house. It's super awesome that we can both share our faith together. But no, it's definitely communication on our scheduling for us to be able to get everything to work and kind of stay on the same page. So.
Love it.
Yeah, and you just wait till you get the little taste.
Yep.
It just adds another wrench into it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's tough. Life gets hard and it gets busy, and Evan, Luke, and I were just entering that world, so we kind of feel like we're novice parents at times, right? But everybody is a novice parent with their first one, so yeah, it's communication's huge. We're guys. Obviously, our wives say that we struggle at it at times.
Yeah.
I know I do, but communication's huge. Thinking back, gosh, when we talk about all those times every Saturday, Sunday with Dad, growing up, we'd be waterfowl hunting. I also remember making sure that we were picking up the decoys by 9:30 so that we could be back home at 10 to shower and be at church by 10:30 minutes.
Mom would be texting, "Mass at 10:30?" ?
Where are you?
Yeah, we'll be there.
So, and that's not always the right reason why you go, just because Mom wants you to go. But thanks to them, they helped install and get us there. Even though when you're a kid and that's not your focal point in life, you're always looking at the bright, shiny things. That's come full circle. And then for me, meeting my wife later in life, we met when I was 29, 30 and got married. Her family is just like Sam and I's, large Catholic family and big into prayer, big into faith. So she's helped big time bring that back and that faith into my life. So it keeps me on the straight and narrow. So
love it.
She's my biggest blessing, followed by those two little children. And then, like we talked about, when I can get out in the woods, she understands that that's my time for fulfillment. So, and it's not just fulfillment from today's life of, our busy schedules and the kids' schedules and her time, my time. It's also fulfillment of getting back to what I was brought up doing. So it's important.
Absolutely. Love that. That's preaching, man. That's good. Both of you guys. That's good. Well, like Luke said earlier too, we want to be respectful of your guys' time. So we truly, truly appreciate you guys hopping on and just kind of spewing some wisdom on us with us novice Western hunters and kind of getting me excited. It's bow opener next weekend. And I mean, we're talking elk hunting, we're talking mule deer hunting. It's time. It is finally I'm excited for this podcast because this kicks off
it's a Super Bowl.
Hopefully eventful fall. So, but with
that.
Oh yeah. But with tradition with that, I mean, would either of you guys like to just kind of close us out with a prayer? Otherwise, Luke and I can jump in and we'll do it.
Lead the way, boys.
All right. I got her. All right. Dear Lord, thank you so much for bringing us together tonight to have an opportunity to talk about you and talk about creation, talk about memories that you've given us, dear Lord. And we just want to give you thanks for that. And we just pray for a safe fall for all four of us, and not for just us, but for everybody else that's going to get out and enjoy everything that you've given us, dear Lord. And we just pray that you can bless us this fall, watch over our families as we travel, and we do the thing that we love, and we just give all the glory to you. And we just thank you so much for the opportunity to let us follow our passions, and we just give it all back to you. So thank you, Jesus. In Jesus' name. Oh boys, I'm
Thank you,
excited.
dog.
It's been fun. We got one last thing before we go. We do this with everybody. Some rapid fire questions. Luke, I'll let you take the first couple, and then I got a couple I want to throw in there too.
Perfect. I gotta pull up my list here quick. I just had it.
Is this for both to answer at the same time, or are you directing it to Sam? Or
Yeah, both just give like a quick, not necessarily one word answer, but you know what I mean, just a quick kind of first thing comes to mind kind of thing. So if you had
Tony,
that's it, we're done. No.
All right.
So if you could only hunt one state for the rest of your life, what would it be?
South Dakota.
But okay, that was fast.
It's tough. That's tough. I would say South Dakota too, just where we've been lately. But it's tough. If I could also say Minnesota, just growing up where we were at, going back and hunting the local farm and river bottoms and waterfall. I think I could do both. So
okay,
love it. What now? It's kind of in that same vein. Only one animal to hunt, and why?
Whitetail.
I can't be the same.
Yeah.
Whitetail. Why? It's lifelong. I don't know. It's something that you can do as a family tradition. You can do it as a scratch the itch. You can do it as your pinnacle, your trophy. You know, it's the all around animal. And yeah, I love mule deer hunting. I love elk hunting, but I could see myself tapering off of it eventually. So, you know, move on to other things or try new places, try new species. But I'll always want a whitetail hunt.
For sure.
I'm with him, but in spite of not saying the same answer, I think it's going to be kind of an answer that you probably weren't expecting. I'm going to say coyotes.
Coyotes.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was gonna give you that plug earlier. I was like, him and my dad do it way more than I ever did. But my dad, he owns a construction company, so he doesn't have work during the wintertime when it freezes besides push snow.
Fun.
Yep.
So
I grew up
a huge time coyote hunter, and Sam's got big into it now, still staying down there.
Yeah, I grew up like I'd get out of school and he'd pick me up and we'd go right back out, like drive around with Dad and their crew coyote hunting. So like it was.
We'll have to do another podcast because I know I've tried killing one for probably 10 years and never have. And I'm probably one of the worst coyote hunters ever.
I'll have to come down with thermals. We'll have to bring.
That'll be a game changer.
The thermals are so addictive.
I probably still wouldn't kill one.
Yeah, we'd get you on one.
Hayfield's got coyotes, right?
Oh yeah, they do.
There's lots. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Let's see. We did that one. Let's do. What's the most important lesson that hunting has just taught you all around?
Ooh,
patience.
Humble.
Be humble.
Yeah.
Okay.
Patience.
Nice. Good answers. Bungham.
Okay, I got a couple. Be quick. So first one.
Be creative.
What do you got? Luke's had those were new ones for Luke, so those are good ones. I like those. Gas station. You're on the road. What's your go-to drink, snack?
Ooh, I like this
Deli
question.
Express chicken Swiss.
Ooh,
maybe.
Okay.
Nice.
It's not bad. It's not healthy.
It doesn't matter. You're on the road.
Doesn't matter. Yeah, that's so true.
But then I try to go healthier on the drink, and I always go for like a low sugar type of drink, whether that's a flavored water, or a Gatorade Zero.
There you go.
Nice.
That's tough.
Normally beef jerky because then you got your protein. But
yeah,
there you go.
I mean, if it's not a pizza for the snack, like a gas station pizza, if it's especially in the morning, breakfast pizza, Casey's breakfast pizza.
Shout out to
cheddar
Casey's.
Chex Mix.
Ooh, cheddar Chex. I would not have guessed that. That is nice.
And then drink. It's usually a Gatorade. If it's not a Gatorade, it's a Dr. Pepper.
Nice.
Okay. Wow. Okay. I like those. All right. So this one's a little bit different. So it doesn't matter if you're mule deer hunting, elk hunting, whitetail hunting, wind puffer or milkweed.
We both own wind puffers. So
okay.
But we literally just talked about this.
I call you? Yeah, I called you 3 days ago.
He goes, "Does Shields have the milkweed?" Yeah.
I will go, Matt. I will go pick you 15 bags full of milkweed if you want it, because I have like a lifetime. I love that, so I have like a lifetime supply, so I can hook you up.
Yeah, no, it's just in the coulees. I was thinking it's going to be a little bit tighter than just big cliffs, and forest areas with thermals. And mutual friend, well, we all know cousin Aaron, Luke, you know him because you guys work out together. He was with us on a hunt last year, and he quick got out of his truck and did some. He's like, yeah, you got to use this stuff because then when you go through, he hunts in Wisconsin and all the bluff country there, so the wind's always doing turns, ups, downs around all that the tight topography. So where we're going in the breaks, I was like, oof, it would be nice to have something
Might be handy,
to see a little bit longer.
Watching milkweed watching milkweed go down a coulee is like the coolest thing, because you would never guess that, like, oh, right where it gets down to the bottom there, that like all of a sudden that just shot back up to the top. It was, but yeah, it's nice. Okay, so last
Add
one.
it to the list, Sam. Add it to the list.
Yep.
There you go.
Last one. Would you rather be in a tree stand November 5th, Minnesota, with a gun in your hand, or spot and stock out in western South Dakota?
On what date?
November 20, whatever opening West River rifle is. I think that's the 16th.
Yep.
South Dakota on 16th.
Yep.
Okay.
For sure.
I kind of figured that was the answer.
The only thing that would have made it a little tougher is if you said I was on the ground in Minnesota, because we on the ground.
We also are mobile in Minnesota, yeah.
I've killed all of our deer in Minnesota mostly because I'm mobile on my feet.
Wow.
Really?
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting. Well, maybe, Luke,
But
we're doing it wrong. We're going to start implementing ground tactics.
But it's grass as long as you can see, with maybe some hedgerows or food plots, you know what I mean? We don't have timber that we're hunting, so yeah.
Huh.
I'm going to start belly crawling through the woods.
There you go. Yeah, what are you guys doing for the next 2 hours? I got lots of questions. Just kidding.
Well, guys, seriously, once again, thank you so much for taking time out of your evening, and this was a pleasure, and we look forward to hopefully doing a follow-up podcast of you guys shooting some muleys out in South Dakota and killing a big old elk in Montana.
Let's do it. How about an early ice fishing one? Let's do that. And
hey, that'd be fun.
Even better, fishing in person.
From the permanent.
Well, I'm not a big fisherman, but let's just say let's time it for early ice and let's recap our hunts.
There you go.
Love it.
I like it. No, well, appreciate you guys. Thanks for the invite for both of us to come on.
Absolutely.
That's
was
special,
fun
doing it with the brothers. So I'm looking forward to this hunt with them and many more to come. So thank you guys.
Yeah.
Well, good luck,
boys.
gentlemen, and have a good night. Thanks, guys.
See ya.
Thank you for joining us on this journey through faith in the great outdoors. We hope today's episode has inspired you to seek God's presence in the wilderness and deepen your connection with nature. If you enjoyed today's discussion, don't forget to like, follow, and subscribe to the Wild Faith Podcast on your favorite platforms, including Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook. By subscribing, you'll never miss an episode, and you'll continue to be a part of the Wild Faith Podcast community. We'd also love to hear from our listeners, so please don't hesitate to reach out with your questions, comments, or topic suggestions. You can connect with us on social media or through our website. Your feedback is important to us and helps us improve and tailor our content to better serve you. And always remember, the great outdoors isn't just a playground for hunting and fishing. It's a sanctuary for finding solace and spiritual renewal. As you gear up for that next adventure, I pray you find God's presence in the crackling of a campfire, the thrill of reeling in your catch, or the quiet solitude found in nature. Until next time, thank you for listening to the Wild Faith Podcast. Take care, and God bless.